A couple of years ago, I did my morning routine. Nothing unusual. I dropped my son off at school. I went to the gym. I came home, took a shower, had breakfast. I was getting ready for the day and I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize the man who was looking back at me in my reflection. Now, in that moment, it wasn't because of how I looked, but it was really because of who I had become, trying to handle everything that was happening around me at that time. So, let me give you a little bit of insight. I had built my career over 25 years working in media, financial services, training, consulting, coaching. All of those things were my professional persona. I knew how to build and lead a successful team. I knew how to get results. I really had a plan for my life, and up to that point, generally, it was working. And then life changed quickly, fast. After a couple of years of co parenting, I became nearly a full time single father to my son who's on the autism spectrum. So that's therapy, that's appointments, that's doctor visits, that's trying different options to make his life the best that it can, making sure that nothing falls through the cracks, and doing that every single day. And then in the span of a phone call, I lost my dream job. The one that I thought I'd be in longer, maybe even retire from. The income disappeared. The structure disappeared. Really, all of it. Everything gone like that. Virtually overnight, I found myself trying to build my own business since the job market was tough and I really had to be available at home for my son. I had no safety net, no organization that was holding me up. It was just me. So, what did I do? I did probably what any guy in that situation would do. I went into full provider and fixer mode, making sure that money was coming in, making sure that my son got what he needed, making sure that the business was surviving and providing for us, trying to solve every problem, controlling what I can control, and not dropping any balls. Now, the way that that had always worked for me, grinding, working harder, staying in control, making sure that nothing was missed, I just doubled down on that because that's what had made me successful in the past. But really, the problem with that is the way that was already starting to cost me, I didn't recognize that those things were costing me before the crisis even hit. And so here I am, getting ready for the day. I'm looking in the mirror, and what I saw wasn't exhaustion, it wasn't stress. What I saw in that man staring back was all provider, all fixer, all control. And that wasn't really me anymore. Or maybe it was, but it wasn't working anymore. It wasn't serving my best purpose. It wasn't allowing me to show up as the best version of myself in the moments that matter. The way that I had accomplished everything up to that point, the discipline, the hustle, the relentless problem solving, that's what got me there, but it wasn't best serving me in that moment. And so I realized something that was kind of underneath that. I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one that was struggling in that way. Because the same approach that I was using with my business, I was using with my son. When it comes to therapy, when it came to doctor visits, making sure that he was okay, I was always there for him, but it was also somewhat transactional. In a way, it was checking all the key boxes, but I was so focused on making sure that nothing was missed that I wasn't always fully present with him. I wasn't present with myself. I wasn't present in relationships. I really wasn't fully present in anything. So in that moment, I decided to start to shift. Not in a dramatic way, but just something more intentional about my approach. I found more pleasure in the small moments with him, not because anything changed externally, but because I stopped trying to fix every single moment and I just showed up and I was just present in those moments and I was consciously trying to be the best version of myself. I had more patience in the hard moments because I was asking myself a different question. I was asking myself, what does he actually need right now? Does he need me to step in, or does he need me to help him figure it out? Or does he just need me to sit here while he figures something out himself? And I saw that in different areas of my life. Sometimes instead of me going further in, it's important for me to learn when to back off. So I stopped trying to solve everything. And when I did, that's when I started to see pretty significant shifts. And I realized at the same time that living on autopilot versus actually choosing how to show up was happening everywhere in my life, my work, my relationships, again, really everything. So after I made that shift, I started paying attention to something. And I was looking around and having conversations. I wasn't the only one having a moment like that in the mirror. Men my age, 40 and up, they're dealing with the same dynamic life changes. Their kids grow up and they don't need them for practices and games anymore. Sometimes a relationship ends or the dynamics in a relationship shift. A job changes, they get laid off or their role shifts. And suddenly, the way that they've defined themselves for 20 or 30 years, it just simply doesn't fit anymore. But here's the thing. As men, and especially as men of that age, we don't really talk about it. We grew up in a generation where you were basically told, keep it moving. You don't get in touch with your feelings and figure it out. You handle it. You stay quiet about it. You stay strong. You definitely don't tell other people that you're feeling disoriented or unsure or scared. So these men, again, very much like me, accomplished, capable, successful, they're dealing with this alone. Small circles, shallow conversations, and that moment they're having in the mirror, they're having it all by themselves. And I recognized that this is the gap. This is the gap that most men are experiencing and recognize. Now, it's not that men don't know how to fix things. Of course they do. We've been doing it our whole lives. Know how to solve problems, know how to make money, how to provide, how to protect. What we don't always have, though, is that permission to admit that the old playbook is not working anymore for us. And we definitely don't have that space where we can actually talk about that with other men who already understand it because they're living it. You know, when I was in that place, realizing that my way wasn't working, but not knowing what else to do, I could have figured it out alone. I could have gone to therapy, and I did. I could have done some journaling, or I could have just grinded through it. But what I realized was something else was possible, and probably equally, if not more important. I needed men who understood where I was without me having to really break it down and explain it. I needed people who already knew that the disorientation did not equate to weakness. I needed what I call the golf cart conversation. That's the type of conversation where you just let your guard down because the person already gets it without you having to say all of it out loud. Those conversations are so invaluable, but they're also so rare. And I realized that men needed that same exact thing. They don't need a group where everyone just vents and complains. You can find that all day on Facebook. Not a space where you have to self-censor yourself about the complexity of your life. Not a program built by someone who read about this in a book and is sharing theory and things that they think would work, but actually a space that's built specifically for men like us, accomplished, capable, but carrying something that we can't quite name, trying to figure out who we are when the role that defined us starts to shift. So what does that look like? That's what the Leader in the Mirror project is about. It's a small group, 8 to 12 men at a time, 6 weeks, meeting weekly, each man maybe dealing with different situations on the surface. And again, maybe it's a loss of a job or a career transition. Maybe his kids have grown and now he's an empty nester. Maybe a relationship dynamic is shifting or ending. And maybe he's just realizing that success looks different than he thought. But generally, all of them are dealing with the same thing underneath. How do I still matter? How do I still lead? Who am I when the structure that held me together starts to fall away? And in that space, in that collection of men, they start to see that the thing that they've been grinding on, the different roles that they were playing, the provider role, the fixer role, whatever that role is, it's actually smart. It got them there, but it's also keeping them stuck. And they see it in another man's face first. And again, this is not in theory, it's not in practice. Once they start to realize and see other men realize that they can be a provider of wisdom and just, instead of just being a provider of money, that you can be a provider that kind of leads your child by sitting with him instead of trying to fix things for him or her, that shows up differently. It's not weakness. It's exactly the strength that that moment requires, because that's when things start to shift. That's when you start to recognize those shifts. So what changes for a man over those 6 weeks as they're part of the Leader in the Mirror project? Well, the first thing that we talk about and work on is the mindset, getting grounded, being able to look back and say, I built something, I got here, I'm capable, but also being open to, I can show up differently. The way that I lead, the way that I relate, the way that I'm a parent or a partner, it can evolve over time. And that's not subtle. That changes how you walk into your office, how you sit with your family, how you show up in your relationships, how you show up, again, even in your career. All of those things have shifted and evolved. And then when you change that mindset, then we start to get into a framework. Not about labels, but really how you see yourself, trust, influence, authority, how you can actually create the type of standing that matters. And it's not about power. It's not about being sought out. It's about someone coming to you because they trust your input. They want your perspective. They value your expertise. And that's real authority, which oftentimes is where men feel that disconnect. And third, and this is probably the most important part of the Leader in the Mirror project, is that man is not alone anymore. You have other men in that space who get it, that have someone to check in with when it gets tough, that give you permission to keep working on it, and we focus on progress instead of perfection, and don't think that we have to solve everything all at once and just move on. So in your actual life, it looks like relationships and conversations being more real. With your kids, with your partner, it becomes more of a partnership instead of a performance. Because you're building something real. You're not just maintaining, you're becoming the man that you actually want to be, so that way you can show up as your best self in those moments that matter. Because here's what I know. If you're watching this, you've probably felt something similar. Not exactly my story. Everyone's circumstances are different and unique, but something in the structure of what I'm describing landed with you in a specific way. And I've had so many conversations. It's always something different, but it lands. And the Leader in the Mirror project isn't really for those men who have it all figured out. It's for men who are accomplished, who have succeeded, who know how to handle themselves, but also recognize that something's shifted. The way that you've always done it just isn't working anymore, and you know that you need a change, but you're not exactly sure what that change looks like. It's also not about something that you're going to do by yourself. If you stay where you are for the next 12 to 24 months, same role, same patterns, same way of showing up, what's that going to cost you? Not in your bank account, not in your pocket, but more so in how you feel, in your relationships, and how you sleep at night. Those things matter almost as much as the money you have in your bank account, because you can't pour from an empty pitcher. I say that all the time. And most men don't want to know the answer, that they keep on moving. But if you are here watching this, you probably do want to know, because something is telling you that it's time to change. And that's what the Leader in the Mirror project is for. It's for that man who's willing to look in that mirror and say, I can stay the same, or I can shift, and I'm choosing to make that shift. It's a conscious decision that you make, and you do it realizing that you're not going to be alone, that you'll be with other men who get it. And that's where the real work starts to happen. So in the next video, I'm going to break down the 7 archetypes that every man has within them, and which ones are running the show in your life. See which one you are, what you most identify with, and if you've done the assessment, you may already have some insight into that. But most importantly, where you're going to be, what are you going to do, and how are things going to evolve from now. Hey, if this video connected with you, please subscribe to the channel. Would love to share more and more with you. A lot more is coming. But to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that way you are notified when new podcasts and new episodes drop.